Welcome to PD on the Go, the podcast that delivers bite-sized learning on communication, collaboration, and facilitation for busy teacher leaders. Tune in while you're in the car, on your lunch break, or making copies, and get ready to level up your leadership skills. My name is Hallie Case, and I'm joined by my colleagues today from the Office of Professional Learning in Fairfax County Public Schools.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Hazelbeck.
Hi, I'm Mary Beth Anderson.
So today we're going to be talking about a question that we get often when schools reach out to us about supporting collaborative learning teams, or CLTs. And that question is, what should a CLT look like? Do you have examples? How do we know if we're doing the right work in our CLT? And whenever we get a question like that, we go back to the research of the DuFours. And they have a framework that they call the loose and tight of PLCs. So that's what we're going to unpack with you all today, are these loose and tight set of expectations. And sometimes there's some misconceptions around what it means to have something be loose versus tight. So Mary Beth's going to kind of help clarify for us what those concepts mean, and then we'll share some ideas right from the research around what those actions are.
So it's funny because this research and expectations have been around for over 20 years. And we used to go back to our school and say, okay, let's define what's tight here at our school, and then we'll decide what's loose. And it really is, you don't have to make it up. Here's what it is, and here's what's loose. But what's tight is your non-negotiables. That's what has to be done, or you have to have those elements to have a successful CLT. And what's loose is what's left to the teacher's autonomy. And I think a common misconception is that loose means optional and that you don't have to do it. But it really is, everyone still puts those elements into place, but you get to be creative on the how. So we like to think of an example. Think about if you're renovating your kitchen. You have the blueprints of what your kitchen space is. So that's what's tight. Like, you have windows where you have windows. You have the dimensions of the space. And then the finishings are what's loose. So, like, I have to have a floor in my kitchen, but it could be tile or it could be hardwood. I have to have cabinets in my kitchen, but they could be painted. I could pick the color. I could pick the material, whatever it is. So thinking about when you're defining expectations for CLTs, thinking about there's non-negotiables and there's some room for creativity in how you implement the loose expectations.
So you're saying the tight are those foundational pieces that really don't change, and then the loose is where collaboration comes into play and teams make some decisions around how to enact those elements.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so Rebecca, what are some of those elements when we talk about being tight in PLC?
So when I think about a school that is tight in a PLC, the first thing is there's no working in isolation. We are collaborating together. We're making decisions together based on what's best for all of our students. We're taking collective responsibility for our kids. All kids are our kids. It's not just your classroom has your kids and my classroom has my kids. Your classroom is also my kids as well. So we're collaborating around that. And in addition, there is a guaranteed and viable curriculum. And so whatever is happening in your classroom, whatever it is you're teaching, I'm teaching it as well. It's just we might be teaching it using a different instructional strategy based on what we think would be best for our students and our learners. In addition to that, we are monitoring student progress. So we have a common assessment system in place in our CLT so that we know whether or not our instruction is working for kids. And if your common assessment results are off the wall charts and mine are just like not so good, I might be able to have a conversation with you in the room about what did you do? What was the strategy you used? And then I can go back and use that strategy, because we're also, another one of the tight is that we are intervening and enriching for our kids. When they don't get it the first time, or if they already know it, we're making sure we have a plan for all of those students as well.
Yeah. So it's interesting because a lot of those things that you just named are like systemic, school-wide processes that need to be in place that in most FCPS schools are already built in some cases, right? Like like administrators plan master schedules around teams so that they can meet together in collaboration. There's processes from the county around having common assessments for teams, right? So many of those TITEs here in FCPS exist already, right?
Yeah. And it made me think like those TITEs are answering the 4 critical questions, right?
Yeah.
Thinking about the guaranteed and viable curriculum. What do we want students to know and be able to do? How are we going to know if they've learned it? And what are we going to do if they haven't learned it yet? And what are we going to do if they already know it? So having those TITEs in place ensures that you're answering those 4 critical questions. Just made that connection.
Yeah.
You were
And
talking about
ultimately,
it, right?
all ensure student success, right? And student achievement.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we have that as our foundation, then Mary Beth, what are the things that are a little bit more loose where they have to happen, but how they happen can look different?
To the teachers.
Yeah.
So the research kind of puts it into 2 buckets. There's things that are loose for the team to decide on, and then things that are loose for the individual teacher.
Okay.
So things that are loose for the team to decide on are creating their norms or their goals that they want to set for their collaborative learning team. Also determining the skills acquired in a unit. I can think back to lots of times when we're unpacking and we're determining what that essential knowledge is for students. Thinking about what is proficiency for a standard and having conversations around that and how you get to that proficiency, and then creating the common assessment. Now, when we were looking back at that, it makes me think Fairfax County has done a lot of work to support teams in these loose items, that there are common assessments available. The essential knowledge has been written out in our pacing guide. And so they're trying to do some of that work so that you can get to the thinking about the intervention or the enrichment.
Yeah.
And then there's some things for individual teachers. They get to decide on what instructional strategies am I going to try, because what works for your class might be different for my class, might be different for yours based on the makeup of the students. We can also think about what formative assessments we give. Maybe I'd do like just a little check-in from my small group. That could be different. And then also thinking about the pace within a window. So let's say our team has decided, or the pacing guide has told us a unit will take 6 weeks, but I might have some leverage or some wiggle room in there between the weeks of when I are teaching that content. So there's some wiggle room in the how and some decisions left for both the team and the teacher.
And if you're listening to some of these ideas and thinking like, oh, wow, the PLC research says that's loose and our school has been functioning as if it's tight, or maybe you're hearing the term like guaranteed and viable curriculum and that sounds new to you, then some of the resources that we want to offer for this episode are on our PLC and FCPS site. So we have a whole section around learning about guaranteed and viable curriculum. And we also have reflection tools. So if you're thinking about, well, what is the state of our team? How do we know what actions here we have been doing? Or if we're in balance on things to answer the 4 critical questions, we have 2 different team reflection tools available for you. So we are going to post those to our Instagram account, which is at FCPS_PD. And in FCPS, you can also find us on Atlas by searching PD on the Go. So thank you so much for listening today, and join us next time for some more PD on the Go.